Welcome to the Marvelous Moms Club podcast, where you'll be not only allowed, but encouraged to dream big dreams and imagine the very best future for yourself and your family. Throw away expectations and perfection and embrace the messy beauty of what it means to be a marvelous mom. I'm your host, Kirsten Tyrell, and I can't wait to help you discover what makes you marvelous. Hey everybody, welcome to today's episode. My friend Keia is here to hang out with me. You guys are going to love Keia. I adore Keia, and we actually met through my husband. You know, Ben is not a man of he doesn't just go make friendships really casually. And so when he's vetted somebody or he's gotten to know somebody, I know it's going to be like an instant good thing. And I've kind of stolen you from him, I guess, a little bit, which is probably better. I mean, I don't really want you to be best friends with my husband. But it's worked out for me. So thanks for being here on the podcast. I'm so excited to talk to you.
Me too. I am looking forward to this.
And you resisted this for a little bit. I remember you texting me. We went swimming this summer. I came to Utah and we hung out, and I was like, you know, I really would love to have you on the podcast. And then what was it, like weeks later, you were like, were you serious about that? I may have been a little bit not into it, but I'll do it.
I don't think I even responded. I think I just looked away.
I don't think you did either. But I'm used to it. I'm used to ADD conversations, and I didn't even remember that it hadn't been something. I just assume, you know, she'll be back. She'll do it. Everybody will do it.
I had to wrap my head around it first.
Yes. Well, and you may kind of understand, you guys, why she may have felt a little bit like, is this really the right thing for me? Because a lot of times, and Keia and I talked about this, many of the moms that we have on here are either complete stay-at-home moms, or they're doing kind of a different side hustle. Keia works kind of more corporate from home, and I told her you're not represented enough on the podcast. But we have we have the best conversations, Keia and I. They are spiritual, they are meaningful, they're just on a different level, and I'm like, that kind of stuff needs to happen so people can hear, and so you can share, even if it may not be I'm going to come share this, and this. It's there's just conversations that need to be heard by other people. So I think it's going to be fantastic to have you here.
I think a lot of people don't realize you can do this corporate thing from home too. I didn't know for a long time. So,
well, there's such a line in the sand, right? You're either corporate or you work for yourself, and it's well, there's kind of a little in between gray area, and you're hanging out right there, and you're gonna give maybe even some perspective on there's other ways to make money from home with a different area of expertise than what maybe everybody else is doing. So let's give backstory with that. Tell everybody about your kids and upcoming children and all the things.
Yes. So I have a 7-year-old, just started second grade, and a 4-year-old who wishes she was in kindergarten. She cries every morning her sister leaves. And then there's a big gap. I'm pregnant with our third and final child because I'm done. So
yeah. Very exciting. And you're having your boy. You have two girls and you're having a boy. 2
girls and the boy's coming. Yep.
Which is what hubby wanted, and hubby's gotten the boy. And that's why you're
yep,
closing up shop.
We're done. Yep. This pregnancy's kind of kicked my butt.
Yeah. Well, it's so crazy. You and I talked about this last week. After you're done with it, you forget how bad morning sickness is. And then when it hits again, you're oh my gosh, this is going to be my life now for the next 9 months.
Yeah.
For me anyway, I have morning sickness the whole pregnancy pretty much. It doesn't really, it'll kind of die off in the second trimester, and then the third, it pops back up with a vengeance, and that's when the heartburn gets really bad, and I know that you're struggling with that really badly too. It's such a labor of love in every way from beginning to end. So
it is, and you'd think you'd be allowed to get enough sleep before the baby comes, but that doesn't.
No,
acid reflux
is just preparation,
your friend. Yeah.
Okay, so let's dive into this a little bit. You have been doing, kind of give everybody backstory, I guess, about the corporate job that you do from home. If you love it, if you hate it, what it kind of looks like for you, a day in the life of Keia.
Well, I'm a mortgage loan officer. I've been licensed since 2008, and I used to work in an office for a long time. I've been working from home for it's been about 4.5 years now that I've been home full time. And yeah, I kind of run my own thing. I work for a brokerage, but I do it all remotely. My brokerage is 4 hours away from me, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm on my own down here.
Not going into your office.
And I prefer it that way.
Yeah, yeah, a little bit more independence with your
Hmm.
time.
Yeah, for sure.
You kind of, you also kind of work this job where it's like part-time hours, but you have to be available pretty much full time, right? Like
Yes.
there's always something to be done, and you have to be really intentional about when it's
Hmm.
going to get done. And you have one of
Yeah.
those jobs where like your email rules your life. For me, I'm like, I get emails sometimes, but I don't, it's nothing like life
Oh,
or death.
yeah. Hmm.
You are your email account.
I am, and I've had to learn how to manage that over the years and not let it totally control my day. Because it
Yeah.
can, especially working from home. I'll check it from my phone, and I used to have notifications popping up on my phone for emails. I got rid of that years ago,
Oh,
and
so smart.
you have to be able to walk away from it. So
Yeah. Yeah. So, what's it like trying to balance that though? Like, what are some of the other things that you've really had to do to make it work to work from home?
to
Because
work
I
from
know
home.
these are some things that, yeah, people don't really talk about. Like, how do you actually make that happen?
Hmm.
Because this is half of your guys' income. Like, this is
It
literally, you're
is.
bringing in a pretty good hefty chunk of what you
Yeah.
guys used to get by. So, this isn't an optional thing. This is like, you have to make it work.
Right. So it was actually our primary income for a long time. When the crash happened, my husband lost his job as a plumber and had to take like a little. I think that's how you guys met, Brandon, right? Was it Zions Bank?
I think so. I think Ben worked with him
I
more than
think.
I did. Yeah.
Yes, that was right. Yeah, that's right. Okay. So he worked as a teller at the bank, and I mean, they don't make a whole lot of money. So my income became the main income, and I've kind of had to figure that out over the years, and it's not that way anymore. Like you said, we're pretty even. And
Yeah.
um, I initially, when I started working from home, I only had the one daughter, and I was pregnant with the second one, and I didn't have any help as far as like a babysitter or anything. We just made it work, and my house was a mess, and it was what it was. We would go for car rides, and I'd make phone calls because she would be quiet in the car and not in the house, so then
Oh,
she'd fall asleep. And it was like I put a lot of miles in my car that
yeah.
first year that I worked from home. Just, I mean, we weren't always in the car, but if there were important phone calls that needed to be made with clients and such, she needed to be quiet.
Yeah.
And she actually learned pretty quick as a little 2-year-old that if I was on the phone, she could get away with murder
Oh,
because I wasn't going to yell at her when I was talking to underwriters or clients.
she probably knew
She,
it.
yeah, she knew it pretty quick that she could get what she wanted
Oh,
when I was on the phone.
man.
But once my second daughter came, I think she was about 6 months old, and I just realized I can't do it all
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
And at that point, we had started another business that my husband was running, and it was starting to do pretty well. So I just said, I either quit or we hire somebody to come in and help me with the kids
Yeah.
while I work, because I can't manage all of it.
Hmm.
And because I was working till midnight or one
Oh,
after
man.
I put them to bed at night, and it was just it wasn't conducive to anything. But anyway, so I've had a nanny either full time or part time for the last 3 years
Yeah.
that helps me, and that has been a huge relief
That's
for
amazing.
me.
Well, and okay, so here's the other thing too is, and this is something I didn't know about myself until after I became a mom, and maybe you didn't know until after you became a mom
Hmm.
either, but I have to do something else. I have to work.
Oh,
I
for
have
sure.
to have something that's
Yeah.
mine. I have to feel like productive. And I've had people on here and we've had conversations about like motherhood is long and it kind of never ends. You never have like, yay,
Hmm.
I did it. You can conquer a day, but you're not going to conquer the motherhood thing for decades. Like maybe you'll never feel like you're done. You'll never feel like you've
Right.
reached or you've accomplished the goal. But when you have
Uh-huh.
something else that's kind of your own, like task driven and things that you can accomplish and continue to develop yourself, there it kind of just fulfills you as a whole. So while I think some people are like, I can't even imagine having somebody else watch my kids, you're like, no, like definitely, I'm a better mom because I get that break from my kids
Oh, for
and I
sure.
can show up for them differently.
Yeah.
Yeah, is it the same for you?
Yeah, for sure. Cause there's even days I had, um, my 4-year-old only has preschool twice a week. I wish it was every day, but she my nanny couldn't come until 1 o'clock yesterday. So there was like 2 or 3 hours where it was just us after preschool. And she gets so bored with me. I mean, I have to be checking emails, and I mean, I try not to when I have her do certain things, but sometimes something pops up that I have to take care of, and yeah, it's hard. I'm definitely a better mom because I've set the hours of I have this chunk of time to get everything done for the day for work, and my kids will be here at this time, and I need to walk away.
Yeah. You're really good at that, though. You segment that time really, really well, right? Like you,
I didn't used to be, but I am. I've done a lot
yeah.
better now. Yeah, it took a lot of practice, but
That's what I was gonna say too. I was gonna
yeah,
ask. Like it takes practice. I think people get discouraged when they're like, "Well, I made a schedule for myself and I'm using a planner, but it's like I'm still a hot mess." Well, it takes time to stick to it, and it's the
it does take
consistency,
time.
and it also
Yeah,
kind of takes a few fails to make you realize the importance of that,
for
like
sure.
that line that you're like, "Well, this is what happens when I
Yeah.
cross it." It's kind of like I have days that I call garbage days because I wake up and I do everything I know I'm not supposed to do that's going to lead to me feeling like garbage at the end
Mm-hmm.
of the day rather than waking up and, going down the right path and making
Yeah.
little shifts in my day that lead to the awesome days.
Yeah.
And you have to have enough of those yucky days to make you realize the importance of like, okay, I really want to
Mm-hmm.
finish this, but it's so much more important to my overall sanity that it gets closed right now until the kids are
Yeah.
asleep or
So
whatever.
that's part of what I've kind of had to learn over the years, and I've tried so many different planners, and honestly, it doesn't matter what planner you use. So you can write it in a notebook.
Yep.
I used to use a notebook every day. I'd write down the lists, but the most important part is if you start to panic about how much time you don't have and
Yes.
stress about how much you need to do, you're going to get nothing
Oh my
done.
gosh. Yeah.
So anytime I feel like I'm overwhelmed and I don't know where to start and I don't know, I just kind of take a step back and look at what's actually on my list
Mhm.
and ask, can that be moved till tomorrow?
Yeah.
Can I move this? And there's times that I go through and I move a bunch of stuff to the next day so that I can focus on the thing that's the most important to get done that day.
Yeah. That's pretty.
And I can't, otherwise I would be spinning circles all day.
I feel like
Yeah.
I told my mom yesterday, I feel like I've been walking in circles all day because I have so much to do, but there's still so
Mm-hmm.
much like day to day stuff that I really like. I think I even wrote out the list, but then the list overwhelmed me in and of itself. But all I
Yeah.
needed to do was just segment and say, these are the only three things I need to accomplish today. And instead of being like, well, I don't know. Which one should I focus on? Which one's going to make me feel less crappy about myself? And which, it's hard.
Yeah.
What we're doing is very difficult. Running a business from home with kids, being the one who cleans,
Mm-hmm.
cooks, having a husband, having a life where you don't have to feel guilty for like watching TV for an hour at the end of the day. It's hard. And
Yeah.
I think segmenting that and pushing that to prioritizing the time. And it is true. Like
Prioritizing.
you don't need a fancy planner. They help if that's the way your brain works, but at the
Mm-hmm.
same time,
I've used a bunch of fancy ones.
yeah.
Yeah. I've spent a lot of money on planners over the years, but I'm on a cheap $11 one from Amazon for the last year and a half that I
Yeah.
just love it. It's easy.
And all that matters
But
is getting it done, right? Like actually doing
yeah,
what's in the planner. Mhm.
what's in the planner. And I think it helps too with prioritizing. If there's something that you're afraid of, like a conversation, there's phone calls that I need to make with clients before that I know they're not going to be very happy about it, or, things like that that's stressful.
Mhm.
For me, marketing is stressful. So I tend to always move that to the next day because I have to put my brain in a different space
Yeah.
for marketing than I do for, crunching numbers all day, which is normally what I do.
Right.
And if I have to force myself to, this is the thing that I'm stressed about, but it's also the thing that's going to move me forward.
Right.
So I think there's a book called Eat That Frog. It's old.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure
I
a
remember it.
boss told me about that book like 12 years ago.
Yep.
But that's the main thing I remember. He's like, do the thing that stresses you out the most first, and then the rest of your day will go smoother.
You know what's so interesting is today Connor had a couple of things that he had to do on his little to-do list, like unload the dishwasher and clean up the
Mm-hmm.
playroom. Well, the playroom was a lot more hideous, and he was like, "I'm gonna do the dishwasher first." And then I came in, and it was still not unloaded, and he was like, "I decided to do the thing I hated the most first." And I was like, "That was
Oh,
really, really
nice.
wise of you, actually, because now it's gonna be out of the way, and it can be out of your brain." So it's true. Like
Mm-hmm.
it just makes us feel better doing it that way, and we can move on.
It does.
to more.
And usually those things are not as bad as you think they're going to be.
Right.
You get done with that phone call and you're like, oh, well, that was easy.
Yeah.
Okay.
And now it's done. Do you have one of those buttons?
Yeah.
That was easy from Staples.
Yeah. No, there was one in one of my offices I used to work for, but I should get one.
We all should have one of those, right? Especially for our kids.
I forgot about those buttons.
Kids, if you do this, you get to hit the button. If you unload the dishwasher, you get to hit that was easy. Seriously, Keia, we should both buy one of those as soon as we finish this.
We should.
It's happening.
It's good parenting.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so I actually want to address this in a bigger picture. We're going to go into the really juicy good stuff that we really want to talk about. But I wanted to get that out there just so that, if the moms are in your shoes, they feel like they have the permission of it can work. It takes intention. It takes planning in the right way. But
well, I think too, let me say this really fast, because I didn't know that working from home was an option, because I started out as a processor and now I'm a loan officer.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that that was even a thing to work from home. I thought you always had to be in an office, and I wanted out of loans completely. And then I met a friend that she had worked from home from day one, and she's been doing this longer than I have. And it opened my eyes. So it took me about 1.5 years to get my boss on board fully for me to be from home. Like, I started part-time, working a day or two from home. And I kind of had to prove myself that way.
Yeah.
But if anybody's listening to this, that you're in a corporate job or something that you feel like, oh my gosh, I could never work from home, they'd never let me, switch your thinking on that. Because the second I changed my mind, and I remember specifically my daughter, my oldest, was like a newborn or 6 months old or so. And I was in tears because I hated dropping her off with the babysitter every morning. And at night, and I just remember saying, I will figure out how to work from home.
Yeah, I love it.
And from that day forward, about 1 year later, I was working from home part-time.
Oh, that's so awesome.
It just set things in motion. Like, I didn't think it was possible either.
Yeah. Until
I had my eyes opened a little bit and I started talking about it, and I committed to figuring out how to make it happen. So
yeah, I think I'm glad that you added that, because I do think it's like thinking outside the box, right? Like, people are like, well, this is, and I remember asking, I tried really hard one time to get my job to let me move to Utah from California and be remote, and they wouldn't do it, but I didn't have kids yet either. Yeah. And I don't know, there's sometimes just the urgency of like, there's always a third option. It's not always black and white. There's always another, there's always a C.
There's always opportunities.
Yep. Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. Okay. So, you know how you kind of mentioned, like, you do the hard thing first, and then it's really not that bad when you look back on it, and it kind of paves the way for you to do the thing you want. You're kind of in this season where loans are not all you ever dreamed of. It's not what you were like a little kid, and you're like, I want to be a mortgage loan officer more than anything in this life.
Nope.
You're really good at it. Obviously, you're really good at it, but you've been in the season of like doing the hard thing first, and you're really starting to open up to more. And I want to talk about the things that truly, truly light you up, which is like, you're a nerd, right? Like, you're a book nerd.
Total.
You love to learn. This is why we have such great conversations. But where are you kind of headed now in that direction? And what is that passion kind of telling you to do?
So I've gone, for years back and forth on how I had a blog like 5 years ago that was great. I think it was called Improving Me with Keia Lee. Yep.
Oh, that's cute.
Super catchy.
I love it.
But it was all centered on that back to that same promise is kind of all when it started. When I had my first daughter, I went, I don't want this anymore. Yeah. I don't like the stress. Mortgages are stressful. Like, even an easy one can be stressful sometimes. Like,
right.
It's just a lot. There's a lot of deadlines. There's a lot of guidelines and things that you have to learn, and they're always changing. And so when I made that promise that I was going to figure out how to work from home, I also started to look at my life differently. I was major anxiety, and I still battle it today, but it was horrible when I had my first daughter. I guess there's actually a postpartum anxiety. Yeah. Didn't know that was a thing until recently, but weird, huh? I had it big time.
Yeah.
And my husband's brain works differently. He just always believes that everything's going to work out, and that's just how it is. And for me, I have to force that. Like, I have to change my mind that things are going to be okay.
Right. Yeah.
So I that's when it started of reading and the nerd. I mean, I always liked to read, but it was mostly fiction that I read. And now I don't really read a lot of fiction.
Same.
It's
Yep, we share that
all,
in common. We like did you
yeah.
kind of grow up not even really like nonfiction just sounded like a snooze fest and you're like, why would you want to read a
Yeah.
book about somebody's life? That's boring.
Yeah. That's boring. Yeah. Now I'm like, oh my gosh, how did they get over that addiction? How did they, like, I want to read
Yes.
about
I
all
want to
of
learn
these
how to
people.
reprogram my mind. I want to learn how to be the
Yeah.
best in business. Yes, give me all the things.
Seriously. I'm reading a biography of Stevie Nicks right now, and I just like it.
That's so
It's just
cool.
so intriguing how they just created what they wanted. I mean,
Yeah.
they set their mind to it, and I'm like, well, I want to do that. And
Right.
that's where, I mean, just, I'm a nerd. Yeah, I read a lot of books that make me think. I want a book that makes me look at life differently.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
And with that, I've always tried to figure out what to do with it. And I started that blog forever ago that kind of, it helped me grow more because it forced me to write. And I love to write. I always have.
Yeah.
Writing is, it's the tool I use to clear my head and get rid of my anxiety. Like I even did it this morning. I was kind of in a funk yesterday and couldn't figure out why. And my brain, we're so bombarded by distractions that I can't figure out what is really underlying and why I'm acting the way I'm acting or
Yes.
what is causing my issue until I just sit down and stare at a blank piece of paper and start writing.
Yeah.
And what I wrote this morning, I had no idea it had even affected me.
Oh my gosh. I did the same thing on
So,
Sunday. I was writing something. I won't say like any details around it, but
mm-hmm,
I was doing it because I had this inspiration in church that this would be really therapeutic to just like get this out in this way. And the more I
mm-hmm,
kept writing, the more it brought up a lot of very deep, like hard feelings, the kind that just,
yeah,
and I was like, oh my gosh. But because I wrote and I knew where I was in the writing that triggered the feeling, I was like, oh my gosh, this is why for the last few weeks this has been causing me pain. I had thought it was like
mm-hmm,
something more on the surface and I thought it was just like external, and then I realized this goes so much deeper. And if I hadn't taken the time to write and really go deep with it, I wouldn't have
mm-hmm,
known. And then I was really able to like go through it and process it. And I hope, heal a little bit more than if I had just
yeah,
talked it through. Like talking it through is really
mm-hmm,
therapeutic too. But writing it out where it was just me and it's like, you're not going to lie to yourself, or you shouldn't. It's sad if you do. Writing
yeah,
out what's happened or what your feelings are, and you get to the root cause of a lot of stuff. And you
mm-hmm.
really speak to yourself in a unique way. So I love
Yeah,
that.
mine was the same. I think we tend to blame, like yesterday when I realized I was kind of in that funk, I'm like, what is wrong with me? And I started blaming work,
Mm-hmm.
stresses with work. But when I
Yeah.
sat down this morning and realized, okay, I still feel this way, and I started writing, it had nothing to do with work.
Yeah.
It
Mm.
was all internal, something like a conversation that I had had with my mom actually, and it had just triggered some stuff for me
Mm-hmm.
that I didn't even realize I was holding on to.
Interesting. So
Yeah,
interesting. Who needs a therapist when you've got a piece of paper and a pen, right?
seriously. And I know people are afraid to like write it down somewhere, but one of my things, if I write something down and I'm like, oh, I hope my husband doesn't find this, if it's him that I'm cussing out in my
Yeah.
in my writing, but you just tear it up. I mean, I've burned things that I've written before. I've torn it up and flushed it down the toilet. You know, my daughter, so kind of along the lines of what we're talking about, she comes home and is in bad moods sometimes from school. And she, last year, was just learning how to write. She's in first grade. She can't really express herself in words yet when she's writing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just told her to draw a picture. And when I was done with it, I'm like, okay, I want you to destroy this. So I just asked her, I'm like, what do you want to do with it? Do you want to tear it up? Should we burn it? She's like, can I punch it? I was like,
Oh,
sure.
that's cool.
And I just held it away from my face. I had it in front of my face at first. I went, just kidding.
This isn't a good
And
idea.
she beat it until it was ripped in half and torn to pieces. And she was like a different person after
Wow.
that.
That's
So,
amazing. That's
yeah.
If you get nothing else from this episode, that's such a cool thing to try with your kids. And you can do it before they're able to express with words, like you said. It can
Mm-hmm.
be form of a picture. And I don't think we do that enough. Ben's so good at that. Like he can tell when something's off with the kids, and I can tell something's off, but I'm just like, they're just being a brat. They're doing it on purpose.
Yeah.
He's like, something's bothering them, and he will take the time to dig and dig and dig until he gets there. But if you don't have the patience for that, like I don't, you can get them to draw a picture of what's
Yeah.
bothering them.
Well, and sometimes I don't think they really know what's bothering
Right.
them.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing
So,
too, even with talking it through, I've kind of been like,
mhm.
what if you're making them come up with things that aren't really bothering them that are now going to bother them? Like how much of this is
Yeah.
going to be true versus
Are
how
you
much are you
leading the
planting?
conversation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you
Yeah.
planting problems into their mind that they don't actually have? Yeah, that's cool. That's a great coping mechanism. So basically, you're kind of living this isolated business right now, but your real
Mhm.
desire is teaching and helping other women to learn
Teaching.
in the way
Yeah.
that you have.
So, yeah, that's a big, yep. Taking what all of this knowledge, I got to process this.
Yeah.
For a long time, I've read so many books and so many things that the reason I started that blog years ago and started writing about stuff that I was learning is because I had bombarded myself with so much information
Mm-hmm.
and I wasn't implementing it the way I wanted to. I wasn't seeing the progress in my life that I was expecting by reading
Yeah.
those books. And it wasn't until I started writing and forming those ideas in my head of a way to teach other people
Mm-hmm.
that it really started to plant and take root and help me move forward with, I mean, I've doubled my mortgage business in the last year and things like that, and then move to where I am right now with what I want to start is I used to think I just wanted to teach kind of, I don't really like the word mindset because it's become such a taboo word,
Buzzword.
I
Yep.
guess.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree.
But changing the way I view life
Mm-hmm.
has helped me grow financially, personally. Everything in my life is progressing forward the way I want it to.
So it's like
And I
proof
wanted
is
to,
in the pudding. Like you've done it, and you're
yeah.
like,
Hmm.
this is why we drive so well because. And I'm sorry to interrupt, like your flow there,
No, you're
but
okay.
this is exactly why we get along because we get the excitement and the urgency over. It's not just enough to create for yourself. Like you get to
Hmm.
test it, and then when you see the result, you're like, holy moly, I have to share this with people. Like
Yeah.
I see all these women and I see myself in them. I see the past version of myself who are coming to me, or I'm just observing them in their conversations and their day to day life. I'm not like stalking people, but social media. And I'm
Hmm.
seeing the problems, I'm seeing the triggers, and how they're like, I really want to build a side hustle. I really want to build something of my own, but blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, but I've done it. Like, I've made over $1 million on a side hustle, and I know you can do it
Right.
too. If you want $1 million, it doesn't have to be a 7-figure one, but I know you're capable of so much more. It's why I started Marvelous Moms Club almost 4 years ago. I knew what we were capable of, and nobody was like, not nobody, but very few people were stepping
Hmm.
into the possibility and the potential. They were looking at it as like it was this far off distant thing. And that's why a lot
Yeah.
of like what happens in the side hustler society is connection based because you probably have this ability too where or you've developed it where everybody reads these books. And I remember hearing
Hmm.
like if everybody's read Think and Grow Rich, why is nobody rich? Why are very few people actually making millions of
Right.
dollars? And it's because there's no connection. You got to take the principle and you got to apply it. And so it's really kind of like
Hmm.
that's
You've got to
that's
apply it and you have to learn how to believe in yourself to obtain it.
Yes. Yeah. So there's a lot of core work that has to happen, which
Hmm.
is so fundamental and essential to ever being able to do it.
Yeah. And that's where writing has been such a staple for me is it's helped me to figure out the blocks that I have, the
Mm-hmm.
negative beliefs that I either was taught or grew up with or whatever I picked up from somewhere
Yeah.
and work through those and be like, oh, I really believe that. I mean, there's been times that I've written something and I'm like, geez, really? Like, come on, Keia. Like, how long have you been holding on to that one?
Whoa,
So,
girl.
and it just like opens your mind to like, oh my gosh, anything is possible.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where, yeah, with all the reading and everything. And I tried for a long time. I've never stopped reading or learning or writing, but I've always been doing it for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And because I just couldn't figure out how, in what manner to share it because there's so many life coaches, and I don't really like that term either, out there right now. And I thought that was the direction I wanted to go for a long time. And then I realized I don't want to, felt like that was pulling me away from my family a little bit, because I was thinking about business, and it was all about me and changing my mind and helping other women to do the same. And then my daughter, my oldest, has struggled with confidence.
Yeah.
And she's just in second grade, but she doubts herself a lot. I can see her second guessing herself a lot. And I just remember one night sitting down going, I have all of this information in my head that I think I need to teach to adults, but maybe I need to flip it and try to make it in a way that my kids will understand.
Yes. Yeah.
And put it on their level to help her succeed and grow. And then it kind of grew to, okay, maybe I direct it to parents and help them break it down and give them tools like the drawing and punching and things that they can help their kids move forward and have confidence. Because if a kid has belief in themselves to do something, they can do anything.
Oh my gosh. They are the ultimate, like, what is that? Where they think they're superhuman. They think they're invincible. They are the ultimate invincibility people. Like, they really, really are. And it like kind of made my heart ache a little bit to hear you say your second grader doubts herself. And like, how does that trickle in so quickly? How does that happen so young?
Yeah.
And are we prepared to like coach them through that as parents? Because and that's why you fit so well here. That's why I love this conversation, and I love all of our conversations, because we have so much power to make an impact right here in our own homes. And that should be the first place we're starting. If you can't even like coach your child through life, then you probably shouldn't be out coaching people in business and in their own lives, right? Like, these are your essential, these are the people that matter the most to you. And you have to have the tools to help them to grow to be who they're supposed to be without all the outside influence. You have to be the number one influence.
Well, and that's where I think podcasts are so great, and even blogs, because they're shorter. Like, most moms are not like me, and they're not going to read the stuff that I read. Like, let's be honest, I just don't.
You need Keia's Cliff Notes.
Exactly.
Oh
there
gosh,
it is.
You're welcome. Coaching call with Kirsten. Just kidding.
Got it. Taking notes.
Seriously. It is true though. Like, that's your magic secret sauce. Like, you can come in and be that in between to, you're right. Like, even people listening to this episode have probably gotten instant value from it. And it only took them, 30 minutes or so to be able to become stronger. And if you can do that on a regular basis, you're going to help so many people.
I hope, because I struggled just watching my daughter struggle, and she would doubt herself reading, and already, we're only a couple weeks into second grade, and she's already blowing past what she was. That's awesome. There's not anything specific that I've really done. It's just little things we've worked on over the summer, and helping her rephrase some of the things that she says.
Yeah.
And, the words you use are powerful. That's another way that I'm a nerd, is if you look through my journals, I'll write a word and not like the way it feels, and I'll scratch it out till I get that form of the word that means the most.
I'm curious, on a tangent here. Have you studied other languages very much?
I haven't.
Okay,
no.
I think you and I should nerd out over this, maybe eventually. Like, we have a lot going on, but as I haven't either. I haven't done a lot, but what finally clicked for me is, I don't even know if that's the right way to say it. There was an aha moment with foreign language where I was like, but how, it just has always been confusing. How are we actually saying the same thing when they're not even saying it in the right order?
Right.
And then Ben pointed out there are words in other languages that express things that we don't even have words for. And I was like, that's so cool. Like, I was looking up the other day really weird words that we don't use that we should have in the English language that they have in other languages. And I was like, oh my gosh, we totally need a word for that feeling or that moment or experience. So you would probably love that.
I would love that. I'm always searching for new words and how to express it, because it just doesn't,
powerful.
Brandon, my husband, he gets frustrated with me sometimes, because I'll be trying to say something to him, and I'll pause and just be staring at him, and he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I can't come up with the right word.
I'm thinking really hard.
I don't know how to express this right now.
You and Ben are so alike. That's probably why we get along. I get along with a lot of people who are similar to my husband, and I'm probably a lot like your husband, but he will sit there sometimes, and I'm so mean. I will be like, spit it out. But He's so the same way where he wants to articulate it exactly
I
how he's
want that
feeling it.
word.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that's so funny. Oh, that's so if you and I are having a conversation where I just start to go cross-eyed, it's because I'm like, spit it out, Keia.
I know.
Find your
Well, and
verb.
and I think that's where, I mean, where I said before, there's so many life coaches out there, but I think there's space for everybody
Oh my gosh, yes.
to do it, because the way I express something might affect somebody differently than somebody else. Like Nicole Walters, for example, that's how I met Ben, really, was through her. And she was saying a lot of the same things that I had heard from like other people like Shirley Johnson or somebody else, Tony Robbins or something, but something about the way she expressed it clicked with me.
Yes. Yep.
It wasn't,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it wasn't that different from what I had read in other books. It was just her way of expressing it. I don't know. Yeah.
I'm battling this like in my own life right now where I'm creating things and I'm trying to do things. And I have to remind myself all the time. It's that positive self-speak, right? Of like, yeah, people are doing very similar things. And the minute you start to step up and do your business idea, you will instantly find 1,000 other people who are doing it or have done it similarly. But it really does come down to, and you have to look at like, but why? First of all, why are people friends with me? What do I bring to the table? Like, what does make me special? What was I put on earth to say? And I really think it's cool to even go as deep as like, what if there's one thing I'm supposed to say for one person that changes the trajectory of like 1,000 lives? What if just me saying it in the order that I say it, the way I feel inspired, the way I'm, motivated to be a mouthpiece for this message, like what if that is something that changes somebody's life? And then it kind of takes the pressure. Well, that's a lot of pressure, but it takes the worry off of like, well, what if it's not enough, to like, it will be enough even if it helps one person. And
it will
just
be.
show up and do it.
And that's where, with kids and wanting to help them, it has to start with the parent though.
Yeah, it does.
Like if your negative beliefs have affected them in a way, you need to fix your negative beliefs because they learn from you.
Yep.
And it's not, I mean, they learn from your actions more than what you're trying to pound down their throats,
Yep.
It's not, and I find myself even correcting my parents sometimes, like, please don't say it like that. Like, I've always, for example, Aspen used to ask me all the time why I go to the gym. And I didn't want to say to lose weight. And it really wasn't for that. Weight's never really been, I mean, there's been times that I needed to lose weight after kids and such, but I've never really focused on weight. It's always been about strength for me. And I played a lot of sports growing up, and that's probably why. But I said I wanted to get stronger, and she didn't, I think she was 5 at the time, and she didn't understand that. And I remember one day we were camping, and she was on my back because she didn't have shoes on, and she dropped her water bottle. And I squatted down to pick it up, and she's, 40 pounds or something. And I went, that's why. And she's like, what? I'm like, that's why I go to the gym. So I can squat and pick up a water bottle with you on my back and not fall on my face. And she got that. But my mom goes to the gym right now, and sometimes I'm like, oh, don't talk about why, rephrase that so she doesn't pick up on that, and
yep. That's so cool.
We have to change ourselves to help our kids.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you got to make the connection for them. It's been really cool, even in homeschooling, just for this short time. All summer long, we kind of embarked on this. And really, even before homeschool, we were with our kids a lot. Ben and I are both home all day, every day, right? They have us with them all the time. And it's really interesting to already see how impactful it can be to teach them something, or to show them one of those principles of Connor will say something like, oh, I'm just so dumb that I did that. I'm like, you choose a different word. You choose a different way to say that. Yeah. You are not dumb. And that has changed and lifted the energy in our overall house, because it's not like you're just saying, you're not allowed to say shut up in this house. You're not allowed to say that you're dumb. It's like, this is why. Do you know that words did this? Do you know that God spoke and the world was? Do you understand that you've been given a gift of words, and you can't use that lightly? And it just changes. And I'm like, if I can do nothing else but teach them those things, then I've done a good job. And they're going to grow up to be awesome humans who will have the capacity to learn and do whatever they want, because they're going to have that positive self-identity. They're going to know they're capable of anything.
Exactly.
That's all we need to equip them with at the end of the day. They'll learn to read. They'll learn to do math. They'll learn science. They'll figure out how to have a job and make money if they know how powerful they are. So
Exactly. If they have belief in themselves. Yep.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, we could talk literally all day about this, but I'm just
Mm-hmm.
glad that we get to be friends and you and I can talk whenever we want. And
Yep.
but for everybody else, there has to be an end at some point. And I want you to maybe leave everybody with maybe like one more sentiment or tip that you could give them on maybe something you've done with your kids. I know you've dropped a lot of really good golden nuggets here, but if you can come up with one, this is on the spot. One more thing that you've kind of done that has made a big
Yeah.
difference.
So something that I'm actually still struggling with and trying to work on myself is when my kids are home and I have to be in my office working or take a phone call.
Mm-hmm.
If they if they're climbing on me and I'm trying to type an email or something, I have to be able I have to force myself to look away, give them the attention for the 30 seconds that they probably want it, and then go back.
Yeah.
Because if I'm constantly pushing them away for me to get what I need to done, it's not healthy for them. It's not healthy for our relationship. And
Mm-hmm.
that's just something that I'm working on. So even if you don't work from home and you're cleaning the house, I get distracted. I'm not one to sit still for
Yeah.
very long. I'm always got to be doing something.
Yep.
But
Same.
I I push them away. Hold on, I'm doing this right now. And I've noticed that I say, "Hang on, I'm busy" a lot.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
that is something that I'm trying to work on. So just taking that, I mean, it's usually 30 seconds of
Yeah.
looking them in the eye and listening to what they're saying and say, "Okay, good." And then they'll run off and start playing and I can go back to what I needed to do.
Because their attention span is even shorter than yours. So you might as well
Mm-hmm.
give them, it's probably 8 seconds they need to express
Yeah.
something, and then you're back in it. So yeah, that's a
Mm-hmm.
good tip. That's something I probably find myself doing a lot too. And I'm trying, I think that's something I'm unconsciously even working on is I know what do I want them to remember about me, that I was always glazed over and I was always looking at something else, or that I locked eyes with them and that I
Mm-hmm.
listened and they felt validated,
Yeah.
and even touching, like having a personal connection of like, okay, my hands are on your face, so you know I'm
Yeah.
listening to you and you feel my love, versus just like, okay, what? Which I do
Yeah.
sometimes too. That takes a lot of discipline to stop doing that.
Yeah.
What?
It does. And I really think that my oldest daughter was given to me for a reason because I'm not the affectionate type.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I love on my kids and stuff, but she's like overly, she just gets in these moods where she needs you to just hug her for a minute or
Mm-hmm.
my goodness. Yeah. And there's sometimes where like I'm trying to rush to do something and she needs that in that moment. And I have to force myself to take a deep breath, slow down. Yeah. And I'm
Yeah.
constantly telling her to hurry. Hurry up.
Oh my
Hurry.
gosh.
Hurry. And
Yeah.
I'm working on that too. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how Parker is. I think they're all like that in a different way at different times, but
Mm-hmm.
he is so, I remember him being a baby and he just needed physical affection. He's still that way. He's just like, "Can I lay on top of you while you sit there?" I'm like, "You know what? Okay, if that's what you need right now. If we need to have skin on
Yeah.
skin contact, I don't ever want that to end." You have to like remember you're going to grow up and eventually you're going to like not want to be near me. So I'm just going to,
Yeah.
we're going to just take it while we can get it.
Mm-hmm.
And the future will come. But okay, well, I love that. And then my final question, obviously, for everybody here on the podcast
Mm-hmm.
that comes on, is what makes you a marvelous mom?
I try.
Mm,
I try every day. I try to be honest with myself about how I handle things and
yeah,
correct it.
I love it.
So,
I love that you said honest with yourself too. Like, I think that's a huge
yeah.
key is not, that's where it has to start, right? Like, you
Mm-hmm.
can't get better unless you acknowledge where you're not doing great. And that's not like a
Yeah.
shaming thing. It's just,
No,
okay, where are we at? Where do we need to go from here? And how can I show up and be better tomorrow? And
exactly. Yeah. And
it's like
there's,
anything. You show up better every day and you become better.
you do. And unless you recognize how that's affecting the situation, it's never going to change.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Cool. Okay, actually, I do want to ask you one more question because
okay.
we've talked about you being a book nerd. Favorite book of all time, nonfiction and fiction?
Mm. Fiction, I would say A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. Um,
Ooh.
I it's a classic and I love it. I didn't read it in high school. I read it after
Mm-hmm.
I even after college, I think. And it just the story of how she came from nothing to what she wanted to do in life was just so, yeah, I love that book.
That's cool.
Nonfiction. I don't know. I got a
I know
lot.
you have a collection. I know,
I'm
your bookshelf is
staring
full.
at them right now. You know what? The one that impacted me recently, and this is, you're not going to expect this one. I got it. My sister just took a recent trip to South Korea. And she came back and she had this book, and I picked it up. And it's nonfiction. It's a girl that escaped from North Korea telling her story, and it's kind of along the same lines of how she got out of there and created her life how she wanted. Wow. And how, I mean, just the crap that they went through and the things that they pounded out in their heads in North Korea was just so eye-opening. Like, there were I always take notes in my books, and I was writing like crazy in this thing going, oh my gosh, like, you were taught to live this way and your mind was framed this way for you, but you still figured out how to get out of it. Like, right. I just felt like in that, reading this book, I felt like, oh my gosh, if she grew up that way, completely controlled by, you know, the dictator in North Korea, then, I mean, I have no reason to not do what I want to do. Like, I have all the freedoms to figure it out.
Amen to that. See, that's how it's impactful. That's what nonfiction is for. Not just step-by-step books on how to do something, but just the inspiration of, this is how somebody else did it. Get out of your own way and go create something. You only get one life. Go make it awesome. Or marvelous.
So, I didn't say what the book was called. It's called A Girl with 7 Names. Escape from North Korea. It was pretty awesome. I've actually left it sitting on my desk because every time I look at it, I'm like, if she can do it, I can do it. Like, yeah. She came from, worse situation than most people. Yeah. So.
I love it. Cool. Well, thanks for the book recommendations. We're all going to go check them out. I will link to them in the show notes, guys. I will link to everything Keia, where you can find her on social media, where anything that she may have launched by the time you're listening to this may be hanging out on the internet.
Yes.
And there's pressure for you, right? Like, let's get something going.
It started. It's baby phasing.
Good.
Yep.
Good. Oh, that baby phase. It's so fun. It smells good and sometimes smells bad, but it is just a lot of time needed.
It is.
Oh. Well, thanks for being on here and chatting with me. I can't wait to have you on another podcast because we got to do it again sometime soon. But you are great. Thanks for sharing your heart with my audience.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you on the next episode. Have a marvelous day.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you want to take action right now, you're feeling inspired and you're feeling enlightened, and you really want to own this role as a marvelous mom, go to the website, marvelousmomsclub.com/me, and create your own personal Marvelous Moms Manifesto. That is a tongue twister. marvelousmomsclub.com/me. You go fill in some great information, and in the end, you'll have a beautiful manifesto to display where only you can see or the whole family can see, where you can really, really own your role as a marvelous mom and step inside those goals and those ambitions and dreams that you have to become an even more marvelous mom to your beautiful family. So again, marvelousmomsclub.com/me. We will see you over there.